welcome to Snowball Sports. Today we have on the show Riya Rolkar. She's represented Maharashtra at the state level, won multiple titles. She went on to play and represent India nationally. She was ranked number 4 for India, and then she went on to play internationally in under 19 and she won the Swiss Junior Open. So a lot of titles under your belt. But I just want to talk to you actually more about your journey through all these titles and everything in between. So I'm assuming we both started playing badminton around the same age. But I obviously grew up in Belgium and you grew up in India. So I know our journeys were very different. So I guess I just want to talk to you a little bit about like what it was like for you growing up in India and playing badminton, and a little bit if you can eventually share some advice for any kid or any girl out there trying to start training to play competitively, what advice can you give? But I want to take you a little bit back to the beginning. Okay. So how did you get into badminton? Like how old were you, and was badminton even your first sport that you picked up?
Okay, so I started the sport when I was 6. And honestly, the whole and sole reason how I started this sport has been my father. Because he started playing post his college days, started loving the sport. So I'm pretty sure he had made up his mind if he ever has a kid, he's gonna put that kid professionally into playing badminton. But in fact, before I started, training, getting into an academy, I used to do a lot of swimming and athletics. So as a 6-year-old, I was into athletics and swimming. Okay, nice. And then later on, I joined a summer camp. Did like a quick 2-month camp, because my dad used to coach, I used to spend hours with him.
So he used to coach badminton? Like he was a badminton coach?
Yes.
Oh, okay, nice.
So I mean, he started training me a little bit.
Oh, nice.
And I went on to playing my first district, the under 10 mini girls. Oh, okay. And I happened to win it. So that was my first ever title. Yeah. And that's how the journey began. I mean, I've been playing badminton for over 15 years now. I'm 25. So yeah, almost about 20 years now. And it's been a lovely journey. So I never looked back post I started. So it's been badminton throughout my journey.
Fair. And I just wanted to ask you, like, when you're saying that you transitioned from athletics and swimming to badminton over one summer camp, so I'm assuming, did you show like skill from the beginning, or did it take time for you to like develop that skill? Like, were you inherently just good at it when you picked up the sport, or eventually was it the training and a lot of that development from your dad's coaching that eventually got you to where you?
Okay, so as a kid, I think you face a lot of challenges understanding the basics and learning the basics. Quite luckily for me, I got that very naturally. So like the basic strokes, starting from your toss and lifts and all, it was very easy for me to grasp, and I think which is why I could see myself play at least some basic sort of badminton in those 2 months. So even the 2 months of summer camp really pushed me into playing a tournament in 2 months.
Which is quite quick, to be honest, because I know for me, like, I think it was a year before I even started. So I used to go play for fun, and it was only after a year where someone recommended to my dad, like, okay, why don't you tell her to do the tryouts for the district level, which is the equivalent of state, I guess, here. But it was a year before I even thought of that idea. So I guess for you, a little bit of the natural talent was the inherent stepping stone for you to be pushed into.
And honestly, for every kid, it is different. I would say my strength basically was, as a 8-9-year-old, I had a lot of strength compared to other kids my age. Now this is something you cannot control as a kid.
You can't.
So which is why you see a vast difference in the sort of play when you see kids of that age. There are some kids who are really good, and then some kids take a little bit of time to pick up. But then after you're 14, 15, everybody's at the same power when it comes to strength. So I think that's when, you're
at a level playing field.
Correct.
It's not fair to compare, I guess, as like for 7-8-year-olds at that point, for parents to already make those quick decisions like, okay, he's not really showing so much promise, so let me just take him out and put him in another sport, Like, I guess the key takeaway from that is like parents should be a little bit more patient in that sense, because everyone has different levels and different speeds at which they will develop, but I don't think it's fair that in a year's time you make that call saying that, okay, he's not doing as well or she's not doing as well, so let's just switch sport. But just one question from that is, I wanted to ask also that you mentioned that doing swimming and athletics was that. I'm going to just start that question.
Sure, later. Yeah, they put the speaker here.
Yeah. Yeah. So sorry. Moving back. Okay. Yeah. So just.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. We'll cut this
Yeah.
out. But yeah, so just moving back to that point a little bit, you mentioned that the swimming and athletics, you used to do that obviously before you played badminton. Did that help a little bit with your like progression in terms of the footwork and your physical ability on the court compared to other kids?
Right.
That
I mean,
may just have started?
absolutely, because any racket sport for that matter, you have to master two things. One is your. Wait, sorry, I'll start this
No,
again.
no, it's fine. I'll just start. Why is he checking
I know
so
he's checking
much?
so much.
I'm like, why does he need to check the court?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
He's checking in parts that too.
Yeah.
Hopefully done. Yeah.
Okay. So I just want to circle a little bit back to the point that you made that when you used to do swimming and athletics before you even started badminton. So did that in any way help you a little bit better when you started training for badminton? Because maybe it just trained you a little bit more naturally and made you a bit more athletic, because badminton is a high impact sport. It's very vigorous in terms of your stamina and the physicality of the sport.
True.
So maybe did you think that gave you a competitive advantage compared to other kids, like when you started badminton?
100%, because it gave me that athletic ability to move around the court. So honestly, you can develop your strokes, you can
Yeah.
get your strokes in place, you can have your strength in place, but if you're not able to move to the shuttle,
Yeah.
reach the shuttle on time, it's pointless.
Exactly.
And I think that is one of the reasons why I could pick up the sport faster. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Because
And it's quite
yeah.
amusing because I have seen kids nowadays who do not know how to run.
That's so true.
Yeah, I mean, just the action of running,
Yeah.
it just comes naturally to you. So
Yeah.
it's
So,
quite
yeah.
amusing to see that people struggle when it comes to just
The
basic
footwork,
running and footwork on the court.
Yeah, which is quite shocking because when you pick up a racket sport, I mean, that's the only sports that I know, footwork is foundational.
Yeah.
Like I would say, as much as your technique is important and your racket movements, footwork is as important.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe in that sense, even foundationally, maybe even before kids pick up one sport properly, like say a racket sport, maybe it is important for them just to try other things to build their athleticism.
True.
Like say whether it's running, swimming, any other kind of cardio movement, maybe that is also important. So circling back to that, the idea of your dad being involved in your sports journey, I want to understand, because 15-20 years ago it wasn't very common for parents or dads to encourage their daughters to play sport, and even if they did to a certain extent, I think when you reach age 13-14, if you're not playing competitively, that ratio just goes down drastically. Like I'm sure when you started out when you were 9-10 to when you were 14, the number of girls playing competitively must have gone down. So I want to understand what kept your dad pushing you to play the sport. What role did your dad play in your sporting journey, and just were there concerns and apprehensions at any point in general, like of a girl, his daughter playing sport?
I mean, absolutely not at all, because my parents and my granny both have been supportive since the start of my playing career.
Yeah.
And I'd like to mention that I come from a family of toppers and doctors. So it's quite new for, me to be that first kid in the family
Yeah.
to play professional sports. Like he always had a dream of pursuing sports professionally. Back in his time, he could not. So
Yeah.
I believe he lived that dream with me.
Yeah,
So I think
nice.
I have gotten a lot of support from my family and my extended family when it came to sport. So
Yeah.
I would say I was fortunate enough as a girl
Yeah.
in this country
No,
to
for
be
sure, yeah.
supported and pushed throughout.
Yeah, because I know, like, no matter how progressive families are,
Yeah.
at a certain point, there is a full stop to girls playing sport after a certain age for a variety of reasons, but it does happen. So it's actually very nice to see that your dad has been so supportive, especially you were mentioning before also that you come from a family of people that have academics is very important.
Yeah.
So to be able to like get over that and still push you into sports and be like, okay, this is something that my daughter really enjoys and wants to do, we're going to give her a full support, you know, which is very inspiring. And like, you know, I really hope like that genuinely girls from sporting families have this support in general. But you know, there's something that's quite interesting is that, like, say for example, you see the Williams sisters, you know, from tennis, or you see the Fogart sisters from, I guess everyone's seen the movie Dangal. You see that dads play a very pivotal role in the child sporting development, but you don't see that so much with mothers. You know, like, you don't see them at the forefront. Yeah, sure, they'll morally support you, everything. But in the actual sporting development side of what to do, career decisions, how to go about getting your child to play competitively or better at sport, you don't see a lot of mothers' involvement in it. And I guess to a certain extent that comes from the fact that they were just less exposed to sport, right? But now you see there are a lot of other girls playing competitively now. I genuinely do feel like mothers in the next generation at some point will start taking more of a role in their child's sporting development. Like, you know, like if you would have a daughter someday, whenever that is, like, would you want to be involved? Like, can you explain to us why, from drawing from your experience, why sport is such an important thing to have in your life, and what would the long-term benefits be, you know?
I think there's no better way to have character development than sports, because, you know, growing up while you play sports, it teaches you the most important thing in life, and that is how to lose. Because see, when it comes to academics, you're not very used to failing, you know, because, you know, you're used to like doing well in exams throughout your career, passing your board exams, getting into good colleges, you know, you've always kind of succeeded and you've lived in your shell. But here, when you play tournaments, no matter you are India #1 or you represent the country or whatever, you play matches day in and day out. And I think it's statistically proven that you lose almost about 50 to 55% of your matches. So I think that's what's important. You know, losing again, getting back, losing again, getting back. So
picking yourself up constantly, and I guess 100%, like, to be able to teach your kids, especially your daughters, through sport, that the idea that life gets in the way, shit happens, and you know, like. But it's that idea of you constantly being able to pick yourself up, you know, and I guess that is one of the biggest takeaways I know also for me that I've learned from sport, like, especially after playing sport for such a long time competitively, then moving away from the sport, like, you know, like starting my own business comes with so many challenges, but that inherent trait that I've learned from sport, like, pick yourself up, pick yourself up. I don't think anything else can teach you better than sports can. That trait that you pick up, but also a little bit more about your journey, like taking you a little bit back again towards your teenage years, and what was the experience and what was the journey like moving from, say, local coaching or coaching in your neighborhood to moving to state level coaching? Like, what were the key milestones that you've achieved, and what all steps were taken as part of that journey to reach from local coaching to state level and then international?
I mean, I moved to an academy quite soon in my career. Like I mentioned, after the districts I won, was when I came to CCI. And I started training with Miss Hufreshna Riemann. So at that point, what had happened was CCI used to be a center of the Prakash Padukone Badminton Academy. So, you know, at a very young age, I was exposed to a big academy in Mumbai. And at the same time, I used to travel to Bangalore for all my summer winter camps and also play with the players in Karnataka. So at that young age, getting exposed to big academies, you know, like their training schedules, watching legends play. Like, you know, when I'd gone to Bangalore, I've seen fuck, I forgot her name. Sorry, I'm going to take this again. I forgot her name, man. I don't think you would know Gayatri and Neha Pandit and all.
No.
But yeah, Lakshan all used to play this. So
mention that for sure. It's fine, we'll start again.
I'll start this again.
Okay, one second. So we were talking about, like women and picking up sport. Okay, yeah, so obviously we've talked, I guess, the lessons you get from sport, but what was it like in the beginning? Like, I want to ask you, like, what was the journey like from reaching state level to playing for India and then playing internationally? Like, what were the steps that were taken for you to be able to achieve all of this, you know, like the milestones you achieved? And like, okay, I also need to say it. One second. Okay, fine, I got it. Okay. Yeah, so I guess, one of the biggest takeaways, like we said, about picking up from sport is that you really learn how to pick yourself up after every loss, which is nice. But I'm sure you must have faced a lot of losses through your journey of badminton. So I want to understand, like, at every point in your journey, say from state level coaching, I mean from local coaching to reaching state level to playing internationally, what was that journey like? You know, the losses, the milestones, like what were the steps taken from you to literally start as a 9-10-year-old kid to eventually becoming rank 4 in India? You know, like that's a great achievement, but like what steps did you take and what losses did you face?
Right, so I mean, it's been a smooth transition, honestly. Like I mentioned, after I won my first under 10 district tournament, I started playing at CCI. So I was introduced here by Miss Afresh Nariman, and I was coaching under her.
Yeah.
And also at around the same time, CCI was affiliated with the Prakash Padukone Badminton Academy in Bangalore. So that also allowed me to travel to Bangalore for all my summer camps, winter camps, and play with the players there. So in fact, since I was 10, 11, I've seen Lakshya Sen play there.
Lakshya Sen, who
Chirag Sen
currently
play there,
played for the Olympics in India. One of the greatest talents right now we have for badminton.
He has a bright future.
Yeah, fair.
So yeah, I mean, it was like pretty good exposure since a very young age. So and that also allowed me to have people who have played the circuit in their days. So I was given the right advice to, you know, figure out my tournaments, figure out my training schedules, and that, you know, it was shown in my performance. So I was doing really well in my under 10, under 13, under 15 categories.
Great. So then would you, I know because we have spoken about this a little bit before, where academies are great and genuinely they're very good in encouraging and pushing and supporting your talent. But you had mentioned earlier that in the initial stages, you would actually recommend that kids train proximal to where they are. And not be thrown straight into an academy, even though it worked really well for you. So why do you say that? Like, why is that important for kids to be training close to home?
Obviously, you save on your travel time. Because as a kid, you have a lot of things to manage. You'll have to be going to school. You have to come home, figure out your homework, also train as well. Also, when you are in an academy with like lesser people, with the coach focusing on you, these are your initial years where you need to get your basics in place. And having that straight focus on you will really help that grassroots development. So even if I was at CCI, this was an academy, I was given the entire focus by the coach. So the coach ensured that, you know, my game was in place. So, you know, even if I made some little sort of a mistake, she used to come and, you know, correct the mistake. So, and you need all of this at a younger age. Because it's not just about running around the court and being a returning machine. So
of course.
Racket sports is a lot about the skill. And this is
it's true.
And the skill part is what you develop in your initial years. Because if you learn something in your younger years, you're going to carry it throughout your sporting journey.
No, 100%.
So it's really important to have that basics in place, and which is why it's essential as a kid. The coach ensures that the focus is majorly on you.
So you would recommend that, like, proximity is one thing, but also like having a academy for you that is also close to you is very important. Because it provides structure for the kid. It provides them with that basic skill and the foundation that I don't think you can just replace with, you know, like being like randomly being coached, or like, you know, like having say like one coach here, one coach there. The fragmentation doesn't help. You need that structure. So today, if for example, if you were starting out or if a parent was starting out and they wanted to put their kid into badminton, what would the initial steps be that you would think are important if their kid wants to train and play competitively? Like, what advice would you give?
Okay, so if they've already put their child into badminton, if the kid is playing for a while, obviously they will choose an academy based on where they're located.
Yeah.
And I think it's very essential for parents today to have that trust on the coach, because you can't just keep on changing academies every now and then. So, I would suggest that parents do give the coach some time and the kid some time, because it's a rapport that the kid is going to be developing with the coach, and it's a very important rapport to be developed. So, yes, to not expect results very soon, because it's a long journey. I mean, people don't realize that if you're starting at the age of 10, there is no guarantee whatsoever this performance is going to be consistent at the age of 16, 17.
100%.
Like, I've had a journey which has gone like a roller coaster ride, to be honest. I've had years where I've performed like shit, and then there were years where I performed at my absolute peak, where I was like unbeatable. So this happens, and you gotta trust your kid, you gotta trust your coach, and then just be
patient.
Absolutely.
Like, not to be hasty, like, okay, 1 year they're not performing, now let's put the kid out of the sport and make them try something else, or take them out of sport in general. Just be patient with the kids and make sure that they're developing over time. It's not a short-term race, it's a longer race, so you have to be patient with your kids.
And only if the kid hates the sport is when you can
really be like, no, but you do see that quite often, the mentality of parents, especially here, I feel like, is very results oriented. So the minute kids don't achieve the results that the parents would like them to achieve in the time frame that they want, then it's like, oh, is it still worth playing the sport, or is it worth giving that time? Like, I'd rather my kid be focused on academics instead of this then. Which, again, like you said earlier in the interview also, like, a lot of kids have different levels and different timelines, but that doesn't mean that they won't ever get good at the sport, like, so just give them time and make sure that they're learning at their level and at the progressing that the way they want to progress.
And it's easily possible to give time, because till you reach 10th grade, you have more than enough time to figure out whether you're good at the sport or not. And also, till 10th grade, you can easily manage sports along with academics. So I feel, that's something that parents should.
No, for sure, I agree. But also a little bit about, like, I know, like, in India, sometimes the politics of sport or in general does play a factor, like in the hindrance or in the encouraging. Like, it depends who you are, which side you're on. Like, does it hinder your performance or your progression, or does it actually encourage it? Were there any challenges that you faced in your journey in terms of politics or infrastructure, or just the lack of facilities, or any barriers in general in your sporting journey? Like, did you face anything?
Honestly, in this country, politics is everywhere. I mean, you name sports, you name college admissions, you name anything for that matter. So that, that's something that you can't neglect. But it's an unfortunate truth, and I believe you have to keep that in mind and just work your way out. Because there's just one thing I have always, tried to reassure myself with is, if you're the best player out there, no matter what the politics, nobody can chuck you out. It's as simple as that.
Fair enough. So put in the hard work.
Like,
be the best
be
at what you can.
Optimistic and be confident, not overconfident about yourself. And I think the results will show.
Fair enough. I guess the talking is on the court. You do all the talking on court, and no one else can then be a hindrance for you. No, for sure. And also during your sporting journey, like for badminton, so you were part of a structured academy, which you said really helped you in all senses, like, for your technique, physical development, everything. But do you think that, again, for parents listening out there, and I want to just share a bit more advice that you can maybe give, is beyond just the academy coaching, is private coaching a thing in Bombay or India? Do people opt for that also to help progress? Does that help, or do you still feel like it's better to do structured training just at an academy?
No, absolutely. Private coaching is a thing, and I think it's always been there since the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, you would also know that there was a time where Saina wasn't performing in the middle, and then she moved to Bangalore just to
Correct,
get
yeah,
private
yeah.
coaching from Vimal.
Yeah.
Because I think when things go wrong, you go back to your basics, and that's what you do in your life as well.
Fair
right?
enough.
So it's always essential, and I think like a nice blend of private coaching along with academic coaching, because
Yeah.
academy coaching.
Yeah.
Because in academy, you get good sparring along with people who are at your level.
Yeah,
So which
correct.
is equally important
Yeah.
to get that good amount of games, good amount of
Yeah,
sparring
yeah.
every day. And at the same time, private coaching also helps you correct your mistakes and
Yeah.
learn on the journey.
And there's
So-
more personal attention, I guess. Like in real time, you're trying to figure out, okay, like my cleos are not going, my footwork is wrong.
Correct.
So I guess there's that personal attention.
Right. So it's a good blend of both.
Mix, yeah. So I guess anyone starting out initially, I guess academies are good. But if you do want to pursue at a certain level, there should be a balance of private coaching as well.
Yeah.
But would you say that badminton in India or private coaching, is it expensive? Like what would the average price ranges be? Like say per lesson or maybe monthly, how much would you spend?
See, I mean, honestly, it depends. Now, there are some academies where a particular coach will provide you private coaching there.
Okay.
So then it depends based on the hours, and if at all you have like fixated days, say you're doing this 3
Yeah.
days a week or something,
Yeah.
then you pay monthly fees. Honestly, this will differ based on who the coach
Fair
is
enough, fair enough.
and where you're based out
Yeah.
of.
Fair enough. But in general, like on average, would private coaching be expensive? Because this is just to understand that, not everyone comes from privilege.
True.
Now, they might just have an academy to support them and that's it. Because academies are, I guess, subsidized. They're also scouting talent. So sometimes they subsidize the fees and they want to promote the talent.
Yeah.
But at some point, like you said, maybe private coaching does help.
Yeah.
So is private coaching something that is affordable in general in Bombay, would you say, like, or is it more on the expensive side? Because I know tennis is very expensive,
Yeah.
but is badminton also expensive?
Badminton also gets a bit expensive, but see, like I said, it's not a mandate that you need to do private coaching. Yeah, private coaching can essentially help
Yeah.
you. Say if you have a good coach in place, and you have a good rapport with the coach,
Yeah.
and if the private coaching is actually helping you out,
Then they
So-
can also pitch in. The coaches
Yeah.
also are a bit more supportive.
Absolutely.
That like, okay, we can figure out a way on how.
because there's no proper structure to private coaching in Mumbai, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like there are some coaches who will charge you based on per hour fees,
Yeah, and
per
some.
session fees, or or
Yeah.
you might have like monthly charges.
Yeah.
So it differs. It's not like your gym where you can go
A
to
monthly
gym and then you have a
membership
personal
and-
trainer. It's not that sort of
No,
thing.
no, fair. I understand that. But yeah, like, so again, coming to the structure of badminton in Maharashtra at least, because I feel like you'll have experience with that. Would you say that badminton in Maharashtra is quite organized and systematic, or is it quite fragmented still? Like the systems, like I guess for you to be able to like progress through levels, and like are there good academies in general, and is there like a curriculum, that okay, once I pass this level, I know I can go to U15, I can go to U17. This is the structure. Or is it very fragmented? You kind of are left on your own to figure out like, okay, how do I progress to the next step?
I think it's quite fragmented even today. It's just that you have bigger courts, more coaches, because obviously
Yeah.
the players who are performing in the late 2000s and
Yeah,
all have
yeah.
become coaches now and have started wonderful academies.
Yeah.
And you have major academies in Mumbai, Thane, Pune,
Yeah,
Nasik,
yeah.
Nagpur.
Yeah.
But what happens is there's no proper structure to, hey, this is where I should go next, or, this
Yeah.
place is where I should go next. Generally, students just decide based on where they're based out of. And the second decision comes when you start playing doubles.
Okay.
And say your partner is suppose playing from Pune.
Yeah.
Then you might decide, shifting to the Pune Academy, because you get to play practice with your partner, and then
Fair enough.
it's
fair
sort
enough.
of one place for the
Yeah,
two
yeah,
of
for
you to
both
play.
of you to be able to train together. No, fair. But would you say then that's a bit of a barrier here, like to play? Because I feel like in Belgium it's very different. Like again, training facilities are much better. You have training courts almost every 10-15 minutes. You have a sporting center somewhere, so you're never too far from being able to be accessible to sports or sport academies and stuff. But clearly over here, sometimes like if you're telling me like say like the Prakash Padukone Academy is probably one of the best in Maharashtra or in Bombay?
So PPP is now based out of, it was always based out of Bangalore.
Yeah, but they have an affiliation with
Yeah,
CCI.
they used to have an affiliation with CCI in Mumbai
Okay.
and also in Pune.
Okay, nice.
So these were two places in India they had.
But then does that not become like a bit of a barrier? Because say you're in Bombay and you're living here, but now if you have to move to Pune
Yeah.
just to train,
Yeah.
it's a bit of a like staying away from home, and as a younger kid, like maybe that can also be a bit, daunting to be having to like uproot your life and move to Pune or Bangalore for badminton. And
But see, that's a decision I think you have to take eventually.
Yeah.
It's very similar to going to a boarding school.
Fair enough.
Now, you can
True.
take Lakshya Sen, for example. He comes
Yeah.
from this small town called Almora.
Yeah.
And he has been staying alone in Bangalore since the age of 9, 10.
Yeah.
And obviously, I mean, got a lot of support from the academy, his family, everything.
Yeah.
But you see the results today.
Yeah. So if you're committed, I guess you really do have to follow through, and I guess you really don't achieve this much without sacrifices. Everyone has, I guess, has to make a sacrifice at some point if you do want to reach a spot, and you do eventually see the results, right? Like, he genuinely is one of the greatest we've seen so far. So I guess.
I mean, if you can go to an IIT Kharagpur for engineering, you can go to
Yeah.
Pune or Hyderabad or Bangalore for
I mean,
badminton.
actually, like that's a very interesting outlook. Like for academics, parents are willing to send their kids, right? Like anywhere, domestically or India, internationally, they are. So why is sport not seen the same way? You should, very true. Like if you can move for studying, you can actually move for sports as well. So I guess my next question is, for anyone starting out playing badminton now, especially young girls, I want to focus more on young girls because I know still families, even though they seem to be progressive, like I mentioned, like at a certain age, girls are just expected to stop. So if any girl starting out wanting to train competitively for badminton today, what are like maybe 1 or 2 pieces of advice that you can share about your journey that would maybe help them when they're starting out? And that can be mental advice also, and it can also be physical or anything related to badminton.
I would just say be free and enjoy your young years.
Yeah.
Because trust me, when I was 12, I thought, oh my god, this is like my biggest challenge, playing competitive and everything. But honestly, these are your most wonderful years because, like I said again, the parents' support also has to be there, be it a boy or a girl.
Yeah.
When that's there, as a child, you have to remember one thing, that the journey is long. I mean, if you plan to pursue the sport for longer, you have like 10, 15 years in your hand.
Yeah.
So I think you only care about improving your game every single day and being better at it.
Yeah.
Because the results will fall in place.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that's the only genuine advice I would give to kids because I don't think they need that pressure at the age of 10 or 12.
No, they don't. They really don't. And I think that's something that even I guess not only for kids starting out, I guess it's advice for parents also in general, is that just don't put that pressure too early on. Let the kids figure out if they're enjoying it and don't be hasty about the results. The results will come. Just make sure you're going through the right channels, the right structure. And maybe focus more on who you're surrounding yourself with, like the coaches you're surrounding yourself with or the academies, because I think that's what's going to help them push them in the long run for sure.
And it's essential to fall in love with the game if you want to play longer. 'Cause I remember I used to be like stressed before every match I played. I used to have like butterflies in my stomach.
No,
and I mean, of course, while I got on the court in the first 5 points, it used to go away. But that's the thing. I think you start enjoying the process of playing matches. You start enjoying the process of actually training, working out,
and learning how to deal with the pressure. Because I know I am an anxious person by nature. I just am. And maybe I think, like for me, obviously, like badminton has always been something that I come back to de-stress, take away from the anxiety. But growing up, I know when I was playing nationals and I was playing competitively, even if I knew I was playing the same opponent, I've managed to beat them several times, that anxiety was always there, like it's always there. And like you said, in the first 5 points, it's fine. Then you go back to, you get focused in the game and you forget about the anxiousness. But I think that initial stage before playing a match, I think I would even be like, make sure like your coaches or your parents are around supporting you and not putting that added pressure like, oh, you have to win. See, a little bit of encouragement is always important, but not to the point where the kid starts feeling like my loss and wins are tied to my identity.
Absolutely.
You know, like
whenever you're on the court, I believe your coach should be your world.
Yeah.
Like I remember when I was 10, 11, Suprakash sir had told me once that I should be playing with horse blinders because I had like a real bad habit of paying attention to everything outside. So I knew while I was playing on the court what's happening there, or what this person is talking, or are they cheering or not. And I think that's absolutely not needed, All you need to do when you're on the court is just focus on your opponent, you, and probably if there's a coach sitting behind, the only person you need to listen to is the coach.
Exactly. No one else should matter. Like it should just be this. Are there any other similar experiences now that you spoke about, like Prakash sir obviously giving you some key advice? Like, is there anything else he's mentioned over your badminton career, or maybe your coach at the academy here also that has stayed with you throughout?
I mean, nothing in particular, but again about the academics part, I believe he had a session with us and all the parents where he in fact was very adamant about the fact that you should ensure that your kid is good in academics as well as sports. Because and he was never of the opinion that you leave academics for sports. Because he always believed any sports person will be good at the academic part as well, because then you have your discipline in place. Because you know that you have to play for like 4 hours a day and you have to study for 4 hours a day. So then you don't procrastinate when it comes to anything.
You build that inherent discipline with you. And
I think that's what kind of built me as a person, now that I mean, I wouldn't say I'm an all-rounder, but that actually helped me plan my days and my things better, and to actually focus on both the aspects.
And it sort of, with the discipline, it also brings structure to your life, right? It brings it brings organizational skills, it brings structure, it brings like badminton is one aspect of my life, but there are also other important aspects, and it just helps you lead your life better, I guess. And I don't know if you've seen the movie Coach Carter, but it's one of my all-time favorites. And the whole plot and the premises of the movie is exactly that. Like, you will not be good at either without, like, either, you need both academics and sports, because that discipline is so important in your life moving forward. When you're older, that without the academics, sport doesn't mean anything, and vice versa. I would say that balance is definitely important.
And it's quite surprising. I mean, at least in my circle, I have not seen one single badminton player who was not good at academics. I mean, they were all toppers, all 90 percentilers, and I think that explains pretty much.
It does, because if you think about it, right, when you're also playing a sport, you learn, if you're playing well, you learn very quickly how to be good at something, right? That inherent trait of you constantly wanting to improve yourself, to beat the opponent, to be better, that personality, I think, automatically transgresses into anything else you do, whether it's academics, whether you're running a business.
I agree to that,
like you almost, at a certain point, you become the person that, like, I just don't want to be bad at something, like whatever I give, like, see, again, it's not results oriented, but that inherent trait becomes like, I constantly want to grow, I want to improve, I want to be very good at what I'm doing, and I think that does come from sport also. But like we said, like, that discipline has to be it has to transgress from sport also into your academics. It just doesn't work one way, and my final question, obviously, to you is, if you were to pick a favorite athlete, who would that be and why?
Okay, so is it okay if I give two answers? Because I have a nice explanation to that. And quite coincidentally, both are tennis players.
Nice. I know, you're a huge tennis fan, so I'm looking forward to hearing this answer.
So, I mean, as a little girl, I always looked up to Federer, because as an 8-year-old, I was watching the Wimbledon finals, and that's how I saw Roger Federer for the first time. I followed his journey, you know, how he went on from being that aggressive guy on the court who used to break rackets to being the most calm, poised person you've ever seen on the tennis court. And that's something I have always looked up to and adapted in my game of play.
Yeah.
And at the same time, off court.
Yeah.
You know, to always ensure that I stay calm in any stressful situation.
Yeah.
You know, take decision with a, you know, not in any sort of a haste, very poised and all of that. So, and obviously he's like the most graceful player I've ever known. So it's been Roger Federer for me throughout my career.
Yeah, fair.
As I grew up, as a grown-up, I absolutely love Novak Djokovic because, you know, we tend to forget that. I think it was back then it was Rafa Federer, now it's Yannick
He always
Carlos.
he never got the support.
He was a lone warrior.
Always. And like, I guess when it was Federer and Nadal and now it's Sinner and Alcaraz, he's always lingering in between.
Absolutely. And that hunger to win, that sheer, I would say,
determination.
Absolutely, you know, ensuring that he gets back from any situation he is. Let's not forget the 2019 Wimbledon finals.
Crazy.
Where he absolutely shattered our dreams. So yeah, I mean, Novak is somebody any athlete would absolutely respect. You know,
aspire to be, and I think he has this incredible ability where I've heard his interviews also about him talking in stadiums where he's been playing against Nadal and Federer and people have been cheering only them, and he has psychologically turned himself to believe that they're supporting him. That kind of grit to be able to go through that and to like, you know, like mentally
absolutely
be like, tell yourself constantly that no, they're supporting me, and to then go on and win the most
great
Grand Slam titles ever is...
I've not seen any player as mentally strong as that man. Like, even at the age of 36, 38 now, he's a legend.
He's killing it. He's killing it. I mean,
I mean, I could not give one answer to that.
No, but fair. That makes sense. But also, just sorry, one last thing I wanted to ask you is that recently you've picked up racquetball.
Yeah.
And Ria is actually world 37 at racquetball. And I wanted to understand, like, obviously after playing competitive badminton and being at such a high level, then you transitioned into doing your MBA and started a bit of the corporate world, you know, that the highs, you know, sometimes you, like, especially I know for me, I miss those, the adrenaline, the highs, the victories. So is that, like, how are you dealing with that progression? And also, have you started racquetball or decided to move into racquetball because of that reason? Like, you still want to play competitive, but maybe badminton is not the level that you feel like you can still
okay, no, honestly, when I kept my racket as a badminton player, multiple reasons. One was, you know, I could see myself being stagnant at the international circuit, and I had decided, like, you know, if I don't make it at my peak years, I would rather just focus on academics. Multiple injuries, you know, I've always had problems with my back and my ankle. And COVID, I think all of this put together sort of, you know, made me move towards academics. And I was working for a while. Now I'm studying at Pilani School of Management. And so honestly, racquetball was not something I decided on. It just happened to me. There was an inter-club racquetball tournament. I played for CCI. And that's how I was introduced to the concept. So basically, racquetball is all four sports put together. You start with table tennis, badminton, squash, and a bit of tennis. So squash was always something I had played, you know, somewhere here and there. Table tennis was again, you know, something you play that with your friends in your colony and you pick that up. So, and I've always been this racket sports person, so I thought, why not give it a try? And it somehow worked for me. So, I think it's a good
balance, a mix.
No, I mean, it's that adrenaline for me to play racquetball rather than actually thinking of, you know, pursuing this personally, professionally.
Fair. Nice. Thank you. Okay. I guess that was, let's